What is your full name, sir?
Ben Temkin.
Where and when were you born?
I was born in New York in February 16th, 1924.
So how old are you right now?
93 plus.
Do you feel like you're 93?
No, no, I feel no, because they always say I look good for 93, and I always say the reason they say that is because you're supposed to be dead at 93. I don't feel 93. No, I still feel young.
Physically, though, talk to me about what it's like to be 93.
I don't really know. I can't do what I used to do. I used to run marathons. I don't run marathons anymore. I used to work a lot. I don't work that much anymore. I do a little consulting work. Uh, it really is a paradox. It's a paradox. I know I'm 93 years old, but I feel good, and inwardly, I never feel like I'm 93. The only that I know when I'm 93 is when I shave, and I always say, why am I shaving the old guy's face?
What branch were you in during World War II?
I was a ranger in World War II.
And what specific units were you a part of?
I was part of the 4th Ranger Battalion. I was in D Company, 4th Ranger Battalion.
And what was your specific role in Company D?
I was a squad leader.
And where did you see combat in World War II?
I saw combat in Sicily and Italy.
And what was the highest rank you achieved by the time you left the armed services?
I was a sergeant, a buck sergeant. That's 3 stripes.
And how old were you when you went into service?
I was 8 days short of my 19th birthday.
And how old were you when you got out?
I was I was about 22.
Now, you mentioned that you were born in New York City. Did you grow up in New York?
Yes, I lived in New York all my life.
Talk to me about growing up in the city as a kid. What kind of things would you do for fun?
I played a lot of baseball. I played a lot of football in high school, and we didn't have much money, so we used to have games outside. We used to come home, do our homework, go outside and play. There were games you'd never even heard of. We played Ring Alivio, which you never heard of, Johnny on a Pony, stickball, punchball. Games that we played that didn't cost too much money. We didn't need uniforms because no one had money. It was during the Depression.
Talk to me about the struggles that your family faced during the Depression years.
Well, my father didn't have a job. My father's job he was a hat blocker. Hat blocker is somebody who makes he blocks the hats with steam. Didn't have a job, and it was horrible for him because he had supported a family all his life. We were on home relief. I think now they call it welfare, and it was a horrible thing. The investigator used to come. Is we had a small portable radio. You had to hide the radio because you weren't supposed to have a radio. And I didn't have a suit of clothes until I went into the army. It was a tough time.
And what were the first few jobs you had growing up?
Uh, I was going to school. I worked as I used to. I was. I'm trying to figure out. I worked in the hat factory as a steamer, but jobs were scarce. So after school, I used to work as a delivery boy for a tailor. They used to do the dry cleaning, and I used to deliver the clothes. That was it.
And did you have any brothers or sisters?
Yeah, I have a brother. I had a brother, and I had a brother and a sister.
Did your brother serve?
My brother served in the Navy. He never saw water. He served in Kansas.
Your folks, were they immigrants?
Yes, they came from Russia, both of them.
Talk to me about were there any specific things that you saw or heard around you that really made you realize there's a Great Depression going on?
Oh, sure. My parents used to sit and argue. They used to fight about money because there was no money. We lived in a beautiful apartment while he was working in the Bronx, a 4-room, beautiful apartment with steam heat. When the Depression hit, my father lost his job. He moved into a cold water flat. I don't know if you're familiar with cold water flats. Cold water flat has an oven in the kitchen that served both for cooking and for heating, and we were on home relief. And it was just a terrible way to grow up. To go to the movies, we used to cost a dime. We couldn't even afford the dime, and it was a horrible way of growing up. You look back now and it's something, but it was terrible. You had no clothes, you had no food. It was a horrible. It was a horrible thing.
Did your father have a job during the Depression years?
He no, he lost his job. He was a blocker. So during the Depression years, we were on welfare. At that time, he worked in the. They used to give you something. He used to work at the police station. He used to clean the police station, which was part of him being on home relief. If the cops got paid every 2 weeks, they used to make him a bundle of food for the people, and the bundle of food was salt butter. To this day, I gag on salt butter, and it's up going back so many years ago. It was, even reminiscing about it makes you feel horrible. If you try to forget it, but you can't. It shapes your character.
Were there times that you went hungry?
Oh yeah, a lot of times I went hungry. My mother used to make hot water and ketchup, and she used to make tomato soup out of that. It was just a horrible time.
What's it like being a kid and not being able to eat a meal?
At that time, I thought it was normal, because everybody in the neighborhood was almost the same thing.
What did you want to do with your life before the war broke out?
I really had no idea. I was going to school, but had no idea what I wanted. The truth of the matter is, I I had a dream. I wanted to make $40 a week steady, because that's when my father worked overtime when he was working. That's what he made. I wanted to have a locker in Brighton Private, which is a place in Coney Island, and I wanted to meet a girl from Ocean Parkway because they had money. That was my dreams. And it's a funny thing. My wife and I later were laying on the beach in Tahiti, and I said, Doris, I never realized any one of my dreams.
And what high school did you go to?
New Utrecht.
And what year did you graduate?
I graduated. I'm sorry. I was 17, so I graduated 24/17. I graduated in 41.
When you were a teenager and you and your buddies would get together, what kind of mischief would you guys cause?
I don't think we did too much mischief at all. We mostly went around picking up girls.
What about on Halloween?
Oh, Halloween was different. Halloween, we would take ash cans, because at that time there was cold heating. So we used to take ash cans and take them and lean them against the door and ring the bell. And the guy would open the door and the ashes would fall over the place. And also we used to take stockings and fill them with ashes and hit the girls with it. That was it.
Did you date when you were a teenager?
Oh, sure.
What kind of things would teenagers do back then for date nights?
We went to the Paramount. We went to Coney Island. Nobody had cars. Nobody had money. So, we just did that. Coney Island was like a poor man's the Riviera. So we went there. They had rides and stuff like that. And things weren't expensive. Like, you could go to... The Paramount was a theater. They held movies and stage shows with big bands and stuff. And you could have a $50. And the movie and the stage show had big bands and comedians like Red Skelton. That was a quarter. Car fare was a dime, so that's 35 cents. And then they had a place called Grant's. You had 2 hot dogs and a soda for 15 cents. And that's what we did, We did things that didn't cost any money. There were also concerts in Prospect Park we went to, and, stuff like that.
How did you hear about the attack on Pearl Harbor?
I was in the pool room watching a football game, and suddenly they broke into it and they said the Japanese are attacking Pearl Harbor. Most of the guys didn't even know what Pearl Harbor was. I was about, didn't you know what Pearl Harbor was? And we knew after that we were going to be in the Army and we were going to be in the war.
You said you were watching a football game.
No, I'm sorry. We were listening to a football game on the radio. There was no television.
Talk to me about growing up in a time without television.
Well, it was different. There was radio. And radio on Sunday night was a big radio night. They had all the big comedians, and you sat with your family in the living room or the dining room listening to the radio. And we played most of the time. We played outside, and we had a lot of friends. We organized our own baseball teams. There was no little league. We just played, and that was it.
So after you heard about the attack on Pearl Harbor, how did you end up in the service?
I was drafted. At that time, they used to send you greetings. So I was drafted when I went in, I was drafted and I went in, February the 1st. And at that time, you took your physical and they swore you in and they gave you a week to wind up your affairs. I had no affairs to wind up, and I wound them up anyway. And then I went into the service actually February 8th, 1943.
What do you remember about the draft card you were sent? What did it say?
Well, you didn't get a draft card. You got a letter, and the letter said, "Greetings. Your friends and neighbors invite you." It's an invitation I shouldn't have taken, but I took the invitation, and that was it. And when you went down and you took your physical, if you passed your physical, they made you 1A. 1A meant you were going in the service. If you flunked it, you were a 4F.
Now, a lot of guys would enlist to get a better spot in the military, or you could say maybe a safer spot, whether it's like the Navy or the Air Corps.
Yeah,
Is there a reason why you didn't do that?
No, I just didn't. I knew I was going in, and that's it. I wasn't looking for a safe spot.
And so once you were drafted, you were determined to be 1A.
Well, I was determined. They made me 1A after I took my physical, and then I was sworn into the service. Then they gave you a week to put your affairs in order. Then you had to report to a place called Camp Upton. So we all met at Grand Central Station, and we went to Camp Upton. That was the first time I was ever out of New York. The first time I was ever out of New York.
No.
Oh yeah.
You grew up for 18 years.
Never went out of New York City. Never had any money. Never had any reason. I was never in Staten Island. The only time I went to Queens was when the World's Fair opened. So I lived in Brooklyn. I went to Manhattan, and that was it.
It's pretty unfathomable for a lot of people nowadays to imagine growing up for almost 20 years in a place and never leaving it.
Well, there were two reasons. There was actually one reason. You couldn't afford to leave it. Where are you going to go? You had no money. No one took vacations. So, and you lived on a certain block. And your block was your neighborhood. And your block is where you lived. The block is where you played. The block is where you made your friends. And the schoolyard is where you played ball there. And that was it. And that's how we lived.
Now, talk to me about going to the World's Fair.
Well, it was the first World's Fair. It was in Queens, and it was fantastic. It was like a fairyland, something that you never saw. I mean, there was lights. It was beautiful, and it was free. They had some expensive. They also had some stuff that you had to pay for, but we went to the free exhibit, and it was stuff that you saw. They showed you. It was called the General Motors exhibit, where they had a whole bunch of roads which you never saw, like highways. And they became our highways. It was a fantastic thing. It was learning. And they had bands there. They had entertainment. It was fantastic.
So, after you were sent to Camp Upton, is that where you went for induction or basic training?
No, I was inducted in a place in Manhattan. That was the induction. Camp Upton was called the reception center. You got your shots. They gave you your uniform, and they assigned you to an outfit, and from there you went to your outfit.
So where did you go?
I went to Grenada, Mississippi.
And what did you do there?
I was part of a division. I was part of the 87th Division. And then they broke up the division and they sent us as replacements to Africa, to take part in Sicily. At that time, they were organizing the Rangers, and I heard about the Rangers, and I joined the Rangers.
Why did you volunteer to join the Rangers?
Two reasons. I was an American, and I'm Jewish. And Hitler was killing the Jews like crazy. I wanted to be one Jew who fought back.